U.S. President Donald Trump has dismissed Iran's response to U.S. proposals to end the war as totally unacceptable. Tehran reportedly sent a counter-proposal through Pakistani mediators, which included several high-stakes demands. The Korean government has concluded that the bulk carrier, which caught fire near the Strait of Hormuz last week, was struck by unidentified objects. Authorities have yet to determine who carried out the attack. The White House has announced that President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping will hold a summit meeting in Beijing this Thursday. Security issues involving Iran and Russia are expected to dominate the highly anticipated talks. Hello and thanks for joining us on Arirang News. U.S. President Donald Trump has rejected Iran's latest proposal to end the war, calling the terms totally unacceptable. The development marks a setback for Trump, who said last week that the war would be over soon. Our Park Jun-an starts us off.
U.S. President Donald Trump has dismissed Iran's response to a proposal by Washington to end the war as totally unacceptable. Taking to social media on Sunday, Trump said he had reviewed the response from Iran's representatives and expressed his clear disapproval. According to reports from Iranian state media, Tehran sent a counter-proposal through Pakistani mediators, which included several high-stakes demands. Those are believed to include the payment of war reparations by the United States, full Iranian sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz, an immediate end to all sanctions, and the release of seized Iranian assets. While a ceasefire agreed last month largely remains in place, U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Mike Waltz said a diplomatic resolution to end the war is being pursued, with Trump giving diplomacy every chance. Speaking to ABC News on Sunday, Waltz said it remains the president's decision to determine what constitutes a ceasefire violation, when to resume hostilities, or when to take a diplomatic route. Waltz also pointed to mounting economic pressure on Tehran, saying the U.S. naval blockade has effectively crippled Iranian shipping in and out of the country. Diplomatic channels remain open through mediators in Pakistan, though no new dates for high-level talks have been announced. Park Jun-an, Arirang News.
The South Korean government has concluded that last week's fire aboard the HMM Namu was caused by unidentified objects striking the vessel. Investigators say the cargo ship was struck twice near the Strait of Hormuz, though authorities have not identified who launched the attack. Our Oh Soo-young has the details.
It was not an accident, but an attack that set a Korean container ship ablaze near the Strait of Hormuz, though the source of the strike remains unidentified. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Pagus said Sunday that the vessel, the HMM Namu, was struck by two unidentified flying objects while anchored near the United Arab Emirates. The objects hit the ship last Monday at around 3:30 p.m. local time in two strikes about 1 minute apart, causing flames and smoke on board. The outer hull on the port-side stern was damaged across a width of about 5 meters, with the impact extending about 7 meters into the vessel. CCTV captured the objects and engine debris has been recovered from the scene. But further analysis is needed to identify the exact type, size and origin of the projectiles. Further investigation is required, with the source of the attack also unknown.
The government will thoroughly determine the cause of the incident and work to prevent a recurrence, including through international cooperation and all possible measures to ensure the safety of Korean nationals. It is also reviewing participation in U.S.-led initiatives, including the Maritime Freedom Construct.
U.S. President Donald Trump has accused Iran of firing on the Korean-operated ship, urging Seoul to join his Project Freedom plan to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's embassy in Seoul has denied any involvement. On Sunday evening, Iranian ambassador Saeed Kuzechi was seen arriving at the Foreign Ministry. Park said the ambassador was to meet First Vice Foreign Minister Park Yun-ju, with Seoul set to explain its preliminary findings to Tehran. He said Iran was being consulted as a related country, while stressing Seoul had not concluded who carried out the attack. The Panama flagged ship, operated by South Korean shipping firm HMM, was among the vessels stranded in the Strait of Hormuz during the Middle East conflict. There were 24 crew members on board, including 6 Koreans, with no injuries or casualties reported. The Blue House said earlier Sunday that a 7-member on-site investigation team in Dubai had completed its fieldwork. A National Security Council meeting was held the same afternoon with relevant ministries in attendance to discuss the vessel. Woo-seok, Arirang News.
U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping are set to meet in Beijing this week for high-stakes talks, which are expected to focus on Iran, Russia, and the growing economic tensions between the world's two largest economies. The summit comes as Washington increases pressure on Beijing over trade, security concerns, and alleged support networks tied to Tehran and Moscow. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
The White House announced Sunday that U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping will hold a summit meeting in Beijing on Thursday. It will be the first face-to-face meeting between the two leaders in about 6 months since they met during the APEC summit in Busan last October. Security issues surrounding Iran and Russia are expected to dominate the talks. The Trump administration believes China has indirectly supported both countries through trade, dual-use goods, and exports tied to military and industrial sectors. Senior U.S. officials say Trump is expected to press China on those concerns, especially after Washington recently imposed sanctions connected to Iran and Russia-related trade activities. Economic issues are also expected to be a major factor. The two sides are likely to discuss the creation of new U.S.-China trade and investment committees aimed at managing bilateral disputes and expanding cooperation. Possible agreements in aviation, agriculture, energy, and space are also expected to be on the agenda. The U.S. president is expected to arrive in Beijing on Wednesday evening and hold multiple meetings with President Xi over 2 days, including a state dinner and working lunch. Meanwhile, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is expected to visit Seoul this week before traveling to China. During his one-day visit, Bessent is expected to meet South Korean Finance Minister Koo Yoon-chul to discuss foreign exchange markets and broader economic cooperation. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
South Korea's defense minister is in Washington for talks with his counterpart on issues such as the OPCON transfer. He made remarks on some key issues that would be on the negotiating table. Our Kim Bo-kyung tells us more.
South Korea's defense minister An Yu-baek arrived in Washington, D.C. on Sunday local time for talks with his U.S. counterpart Pete Hegseth. In his first visit to the U.S. since taking office in July last year, An is expected to stay for 4 days and 3 nights before returning to South Korea on Wednesday. The two defense chiefs are slated to have talks on Monday morning at Pentagon, with key items expected to include the transfer of wartime operational control from Washington to Seoul. Regarding the OPCON transfer, An said that South Korea has been preparing for the transition systematically, stably, and consistently, underlining that speeding up the transfer process should not pose a major problem. He added that finalizing our target year for the transfer at this year's Security Consultative Meeting would also be one of the key issues to discuss during the visit. The Lee Jae-myung administration has been aiming to complete the transition before President Lee's 5-year term ends in 2030, with a reported target for 2028, while General Xavier Bronson of the U.S. Forces Korea had recently said the first quarter of 2029 was the target time frame for meeting the conditions. When it comes to the negotiations on South Korea's nuclear-powered submarine ambitions, An showed confidence that talks could begin before the end of the first half of the year. He said he intends to strengthen cooperation between the two countries to bring the matter to fruition. The two sides may also discuss cooperation to restore freedom of navigation through the Strait of Hormuz. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
On the economic front, the KOSPI continued its recent surge this morning, surpassing 7,800 points for a new all-time high. The benchmark index opened at 7,775.31 and surged over 4% within the first hour of trading, reaching a record intraday high of 7,876. This rapid ascent triggered a sidecar halt on program buying orders for the first time in 3 sessions. Market heavyweights Samsung Electronics and SK hynix also hit all-time highs, rising approximately 6% and 9% respectively, as they tracked the global tech rally. Retail investors led the buying spree, offsetting continued selling by foreign institutions. The surge follows a strong performance on Wall Street, where the S&P 500 and Nasdaq also hit record highs. Korean ramen is gaining popularity in Japan, one of the toughest noodles markets in the world. Riding the global popularity of Korean culture, our Hyun explains how K-ramyeon is rapidly expanding in the Japanese market.
Harajuku, the heart of downtown Tokyo. At a Korean ramen eatery that opened last year, a steady stream of young people familiar with K-culture continues to visit regularly.
I first tried it in Korea and loved it so much that I came back for more.
Korea Expo Tokyo 2026, held in April at the Sunshine City Convention Center, was packed with crowds eager to taste Korean ramen. Last year, Korean ramen exports surged 21.8% year-on-year to hit a record high of $1.521 billion or approximately 2.22 trillion won. The export value, which was less than 1 trillion won in 2022, has more than doubled in just 3 years, maintaining a steep upward trajectory. While the market size is still modest, it is highly significant with a fast growth rate exceeding 23% year-on-year, especially given its symbolic status as a birthplace of ramen. The Japanese ramen market is valued at approximately 7 trillion won. It is a major battlefield where countless new products are launched every year. In this competitive landscape, K-ramyeon is carving out a niche market by leading with its unique signature spiciness. Coupled with the global spread of K-content, the brand awareness of Korean ramen continues to soar. 차윤경, Arirang News.
The global buzz surrounding Netflix's Korean hit series, If Wishes Could Kill, hasn't slowed down since its release. And one of the standout factors behind its success is the cast, largely made up of rising stars. Our culture correspondent Park Gun-woo spoke with one of the lead actors.
A wish granted, but at the cost of your life. That's the chilling premise behind Netflix's latest Korean horror hit Kirigo, or If Wishes Could Kill, which climbed to the top of the platform's global non-English TV chart the second week after release.
우선 기리고가 지금 넷플릭스 1위를 차지했는데요. 먼저 너무 축하드리고요. 1위를 딱 처음 하셨을 때 어떤 기분이셨나요?
When I woke up, my phone was flooded with congratulatory messages. I felt incredibly happy and thought to myself, wow, so this is what this kind of feeling is like.
One of the standout factors behind the series' success is its cast, which is largely made up of rising actors, including Hyun Woo-seok. Hard work behind the scenes became one of the driving forces behind the show's popularity.
Since this was such a major production, I initially felt huge pressure, but was able to overcome it thanks to the support of my fellow actors and the staff. I even arrived early on set to study coding with my teacher, which helped make my performance more convincing.
One critic said the appeal of new faces may have resonated even more strongly because the series was released on a streaming platform.
The new faces helped maintain viewer immersion, while the strong storytelling kept audiences engaged. Unlike theaters, streaming series rely less on star power and more on the quality of the story and acting.
Insiders also say the uniquely Korean horror elements have resonated with global audiences.
Factors like shamans gave the series its own distinct identity, and I think that became one of its biggest strengths. Of course, horror is about fear and jump scares, but beyond that, viewers also connected with the characters' relationships and chemistry.
The series combines traditional Korean shamanism with modern digital devices to create fear in a very contemporary way. The idea of making wishes through a smartphone app in exchange for death feels both like a survival game and a modern take on exorcism, which appears to be resonating strongly with overseas viewers.
The critic added that the future of K-horror lies not only in jump scares, but in compelling storytelling and detailed world building. And judging by the global response so far, audiences around the world may already wish for what Korean horror has to offer next, even a season 2 for Kirigo. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
South Korea is facing growing pressure from an unstable supply of naphtha, a key material used to produce certain types of plastic. Now that's putting the spotlight on pyrolysis oil. Our Kim Sa-young reports.
Here, waste plastic is fed into a pyrolysis reactor. Pyrolysis is a process that breaks down plastic waste into oil using heat without oxygen. The waste is heated to around 400 degrees Celsius for more than 12 hours. Once heated, the plastic breaks down into gas. The gas is then cooled and condensed into pyrolysis oil. After further refining, that oil can be converted into naphtha, the raw material used to make new plastics. The process is known as chemical recycling because it converts plastic waste back into petroleum-based feedstocks from which it was originally made.
Pyrolysis can serve as an alternative technology for producing oil from waste. You can think of it as tapping an urban oil field hidden in trash.
The technology is gaining attention because it can process contaminated plastic waste that is difficult to recycle mechanically. It generates fewer carbon emissions than simply incinerating the waste. Once the refined material is turned back into naphtha, it can be used again to manufacture plastic products, enabling closed-loop recycling. But despite those advantages, the industry remains in its early stages. Last year, South Korea's pyrolysis oil producers generated a combined 47,000 tons. Output has been rising steadily, but that amount is still equivalent to only about 3 days of domestic naphtha supply. For pyrolysis to serve as a safeguard against supply disruptions, experts say the government needs to move quickly to support the industry.
Turning waste plastic back into naphtha can strengthen a circular economy. That is why some government incentive is necessary.
One of the biggest challenges in expanding pyrolysis is securing enough usable plastic waste. But if a stable supply can be secured, the technology could play a much bigger role in the future. Kim Sa-young, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. Passengers and crew from the hantavirus-stricken cruise ship MV Hondias began disembarking in Tenerife on Sunday. They are boarding government evacuation flights back to their home countries where they will isolate under national protocols to prevent further spread. The World Health Organization recommended a 42-day quarantine for all passengers. So far, 3 people have died and 4 others remain hospitalized. France confirmed on Sunday that 1 of 5 French passengers being repatriated showed symptoms during the flight. Health officials stressed the risk to the general public remains low. The U.S. Center for Disease Center director said, quote, "This is not COVID, and we don't want to treat it like COVID." Russian President Vladimir Putin says he believes the war in Ukraine, quote, "is coming to an end." He made the remarks on Saturday, just hours after he vowed victory at a scaled-back Victory Day parade. Putin said he would be willing to negotiate new European security arrangements, naming Germany's former Chancellor Gerhard Schroeder as his preferred negotiating partner. He added that a meeting with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky was only possible once a lasting peace deal was in place. The remarks came as a Trump-brokered ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine took hold from Saturday through Monday, with both sides also agreeing to exchange 1,000 prisoners. Trump said he would like to see the ceasefire extended significantly. There were no reported violations from either side. In Indonesia, the bodies of 2 Singaporean nationals have been found on Mount Dukono 2 days after the volcano erupted. Their bodies were found on Sunday holding each other under rock debris near the crater rim. The body of an Indonesian hiker who also died in the eruption was found the day before. The volcano began erupting on Friday, sending ash as high as 10 kilometers. Indonesia's volcanology agency is maintaining its third highest alert level and has banned any activity within 4 kilometers of the crater. In India, the Iran war has created a shortage of Diet Coke, which is sold exclusively in aluminum cans there. Indians are sharing stories on social media of Diet Coke shortages and hoarding. Some bars and restaurants are even holding Diet Coke parties and are even running can decorating workshops and cocktail menus built around the shortage. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
After the clear skies and early summer warmth this past weekend, spring rain is set to move in across much of the country starting this afternoon. Showers will begin this afternoon across the central regions before spreading nationwide by tomorrow morning. So Jeollado and Chungcheongdo provinces might receive 10 to 60 millimeters of rainfall. Most of the central regions could get 5 to 20 millimeters along with thunderstorms until tomorrow afternoon. And the capital area should notice much cooler highs this afternoon, topping out at 21 degrees Celsius, but most of the southern provinces will be under sunnier skies, getting up to 26 degrees in Daegu and Gyeongju, and Gwangju at 25 degrees. And air quality will be clean nationwide all day today.
Now that's all we have for today's noon edition of Arirang News. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned.